He told me not to embarrass him. He told me to smile, stay quiet, and look pretty for his big night. So I did exactly that, until the CEO handed me the mic. That was the moment everything changed, because what my husband never knew was that I was not just his wife. I was the silent investor who saved the company he worshipped, the one thing that gave him power. And when I said it out loud in front of everyone, he choked on his wine. What happened next? It shocked the entire room and exposed secrets he never wanted anyone to know. Stay till the end, because this story is not about revenge. It is about reclaiming everything they tried to take from me. My name is Evelyn Carter. I am 33 years old, and for the past 7 years, I have been married to Nathan Carter. On paper, we look perfect. Nathan is a rising executive at a tech company called Xenix Dynamics. He has charm, ambition, and a smile that makes people believe every word he says. And me? I am the woman who stands quietly by his side, smiles politely, and avoids drawing too much attention. That is what everyone sees. What they do not see is what happens behind closed doors. They do not hear the way Nathan lowers his voice when he tells me to act classy at events, or how he critiques my outfits, my posture, even the way I breathe around his colleagues. They do not feel the chill in the air when I express an opinion he does not agree with. Over the years, I have learned to become invisible when he needs the spotlight. It was a Tuesday morning when the invitation to the Xenix annual Gala arrived. Nathan was ecstatic. His division had landed a massive client, and word around the office was that the CEO, Mitchell Graves, was considering Nathan for a VP role. This was supposed to be his night. He came home buzzing with excitement, waving the sleek black invitation in my face like it was a golden ticket. He kissed my cheek and said, "Just wear something simple. And please, Evelyn, do not embarrass me tonight." I nodded. I always nodded. What Nathan never cared to understand was that I had a life before him, a life he never bothered to ask about. He believed I was just a quiet woman with a decent family, a degree in literature, and too much time on her hands. He had no idea who I truly was or what I was capable of, and truthfully, I preferred it that way. Until now. I chose a simple navy blue dress for the gala. No glitter, no extravagant jewelry, just a pair of pearl studs and nude heels. I curled my hair into soft waves and kept my makeup elegant. When I walked downstairs, Nathan gave me a quick nod of approval and returned to checking his reflection in the mirror. The gala was held in a sprawling rooftop ballroom overlooking the city skyline. The space was filled with glass chandeliers, white marble floors, and men in sharp tuxedos talking numbers over champagne. Nathan quickly slipped into work mode, introducing me to a carousel of colleagues I had no intention of remembering. I smiled. I said little. I nodded politely, just the way he liked it. About an hour in, I noticed a man across the room. Older, silver-haired, wearing a navy suit with a red pocket square. He was speaking to a cluster of executives who all seemed a little too eager to laugh at his every word. That was Mitchell Graves, the elusive CEO of Xenix Dynamics. Nathan was laser-focused on getting an introduction. He finally got his moment when a colleague waved Mitchell over. Nathan straightened his tie, plastered on his most winning smile, and extended a hand. "Mr. Graves, such a pleasure," Nathan said. "I have been looking forward to meeting you." Mitchell's eyes flicked to Nathan briefly before turning to me. "And who is this?" he asked. Nathan chuckled. "This is my wife, Evelyn. She is, well, Evelyn enjoys books, mostly. She prefers to stay out of the business world." I offered a polite smile. Mitchell tilted his head, his eyes narrowing slightly, like he was trying to remember something. But then, someone called his name from across the room, and the moment passed. Dinner was served. Speeches began. Nathan whispered to me every now and then, reminding me to sit up straight, not to drink too much wine, not to laugh too loudly. Then, just before dessert was brought out, Mitchell Graves took the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "This has been a remarkable year for Xenix. But before we close the night, I would like to recognize someone very important." The room hushed. Mitchell smiled. "Tonight, I had the unexpected pleasure of running into someone who played a pivotal role in saving this company during one of its darkest financial periods. Without this individual, Xenix might not be standing where it is today." I could feel Nathan's hand tighten slightly around his wine glass. Mitchell looked directly at me. "Evelyn Carter," he said, "would you mind joining us on stage?" Nathan turned to me with a stunned expression. His mouth twitched, but no words came out. I stood up. Calmly, slowly. I walked toward the stage, heels clicking on the marble floor. My heart pounded, but not from fear, from freedom, from power. I took the mic, smiled at Mitchell, and then turned to the crowd. "My name is Evelyn Carter," I said, my voice steady. "But years ago, I was Evelyn Grant. At 26, I sold my startup in a strategic buyout that helped fund Mitchell's acquisition of the European division. When Xenix was at risk of collapse, due to an over-leveraged portfolio and pending lawsuits, I was the silent investor who stepped in with $20 million to keep the company afloat." There was an audible gasp from the crowd. Nathan choked on his wine. I continued. "I requested anonymity, not because I was afraid, but because I wanted to see how people would treat me without a title. Now I know." I looked directly at Nathan. "For years I have been told to be quiet, to stay simple, to not embarrass anyone. But tonight, I speak not to boast, but to remind every woman in this room, you do not need to shrink yourself for someone else's comfort." The room erupted into applause. Nathan sat frozen, his face pale, his ambitions crumbling. And I had only just begun. As I stepped off the stage, I could feel hundreds of eyes trailing me, burning with curiosity and confusion. A few whispered my name, some in admiration, others in disbelief. I smiled gracefully, thanked Mitchell for the invitation, and returned to my seat beside Nathan. He looked like a man who had just watched his entire future slip through his fingers. He leaned in, whispering through gritted teeth, "You lied to me." I kept my eyes on the stage as the next speaker was introduced. "No, Nathan, you never asked." The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Nathan said very little, which was rare for him. On the drive home, silence filled the car, thick and suffocating. I could tell he was scrambling to process it all. The speech, the truth, the looks his colleagues had given him afterward. When we reached home, he followed me into the kitchen, like a shadow. "So all this time, you had money. You had power." His voice was low and bitter. "And you let me believe I was the one building our life." I set my clutch down carefully on the counter. "You never wanted a partner, Nathan. You wanted a decorative mirror that reflected your greatness." He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You blindsided me. In front of everyone. You ruined my promotion." I turned to face him. "No, your ego ruined your promotion. I just stopped protecting it." For the first time in 7 years, he was the one rendered speechless. What Nathan never understood, or maybe never cared to ask, was what had really happened to Evelyn Grant, the girl who built an artificial intelligence firm out of her college dorm room. He knew none of it because he never wanted to know. After selling my company, I had disappeared from the tech scene, not because I failed, but because I had watched greed chew through everything I loved. My team, my mentors, even my own father, who gambled away his shares in a desperate attempt to stay relevant. I promised myself that if I ever re-entered that world, it would be on my terms. That is why when Xenix was on the brink of collapse, I offered my funds quietly, on the condition that I remain anonymous. I wanted to save the company, but not the culture that nearly destroyed mine. Nathan had no idea he was working for a company propped up by his own wife. That night, I slept alone. He did not come to bed. I heard him pacing downstairs, making hushed phone calls, trying to salvage whatever pride he had left. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. By morning, the headlines had already spread. Mystery investor behind Xenix's rescue revealed as CEO's wife. Tech powerhouse Evelyn Grant returns under married name. Xenix's VP hopeful, overshadowed by wife's shocking revelation. The internet had found me. Journalists wanted interviews. Former classmates reached out in disbelief. Former partners wanted to reconnect. But the person I heard from next surprised me the most. Mitchell Graves. He requested a private lunch that very afternoon. I agreed. We met at a quiet rooftop restaurant. Mitchell was already seated, sipping iced tea. "I owe you an apology," he said as I sat down. I raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "For not recognizing you sooner. I knew I had seen your name somewhere. I suppose I assumed the wife of an executive would not be you." I nodded slowly. "I get that a lot." He leaned forward. "I meant every word I said last night. And if you are willing, I want you on the board." I blinked. "The board? You saved us once. And now, with your background, your insight, I would be a fool not to bring you in." I hesitated. The old me, the cautious me, would have declined, but something had changed. I had hidden for too long. I was tired of being quiet so others could feel loud. "I will consider it," I said. He smiled. "Take your time. Just know the offer is real." After lunch, I returned home to find Nathan waiting for me in the living room. Suit on, tie loosened, a whiskey glass in his hand, though it was barely noon. "You spoke to Mitchell?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, he offered me a seat on the board." Nathan chuckled bitterly. "Of course he did. You steal my moment, and now you are going to take my future too?" I tilted my head. "Your future was never mine to give or take, Nathan. You built your image on control. I just stopped playing along." He slammed his glass down on the coffee table. "You are not the person I married." "No," I said. "I am finally the person I was before I married you." And then, just as I turned to leave the room, he said something that made my stomach twist. "I know what you did with your father's shares. I spoke to someone this morning. You might want to check the fine print on your anonymous deal with Xenix." I froze. "What are you talking about?" He smiled, smug, cruel. "Maybe you are not as untouchable as you think." His words echoed in my head long after he left the room. "You might want to check the fine print." Nathan was not smart enough to bluff convincingly, but he was petty enough to go digging, especially now, desperate to regain control. I walked straight into my office, locked the door behind me, and pulled out the thick binder I kept hidden beneath a false panel in the bottom drawer. It contained all my investment agreements, NDAs, and contract clauses regarding my silent buy-in with Xenix Dynamics. I flipped through them, heart pounding. The original deal had been handled through an LLC I created under my mother's maiden name. I was careful. My attorneys were meticulous, but as I neared the final pages of the contract, I noticed something I had not seen before: an amendment. Dated nearly a year after the original agreement, a clause referencing beneficiary override rights signed digitally with my initials. But I had never seen this document before. Someone had accessed my investment account. I immediately called my legal consultant, Marcus Hale, an old friend from my early startup days. He answered after 2 rings. "Evelyn, you finally decided to stop hiding?" "I need you to look at something," I said. "Now." I scanned and emailed the contract. 10 minutes later, Marcus called back, sounding breathless. "This was not in the original package you sent me last year." "I know," I said. He paused. "Who had access to your accounts?" My blood ran cold. "Only one person." The man who insisted I put everything in both our names after marriage. Nathan. Marcus's voice lowered. Then he forged your signature. He might have tried to make himself the primary beneficiary in case of liquidation. He could take control if the company sold. A sharp buzzing filled my ears. I leaned against the wall, dizzy with the realization. Nathan had not just been insecure. He had been planning this. He must have discovered my identity weeks ago, maybe even months. All that time pretending he was still the alpha, while secretly digging through my financials, preparing a trap. That night, I did not confront him. I needed to think. I needed proof. So instead, I cooked dinner. I asked him about his day. I acted like everything was normal. He relaxed, even smiled. He had no idea I was already 5 steps ahead. The next morning, I went to see someone I had not spoken to in over a decade. My father. He lived in a quiet coastal town 3 hours away. We had not spoken since the day I found out he had sold his share of my first company without telling me. I had felt betrayed, gutted. I swore I would never ask him for anything again. But now, I needed answers. He was older than I remembered, grayer, slower, but his eyes still held the same restless spark. He was surprised to see me. Evelyn? After all these years. I need to know something, I said, skipping pleasantries. Did you ever give anyone access to my trust? He blinked. Of course not. Why? I handed him a printed copy of the forged amendment. He read it once, twice. His lips tightened. This is not your signature, he said, and that is not mine either. My stomach dropped. Yours? He nodded slowly. They forged mine too. This amendment needed both of us. That is why you never saw it. Who would do that? I do not know, he said carefully. But someone inside Xenix must have helped. This is not a simple hack. This is internal. The pieces clicked into place. Nathan had not acted alone. There had to be someone inside Xenix helping him. Someone with access to board documents, digital signatures, and backdoor contracts. I returned to the city with fire in my chest. That evening, I met Mitchell Graves again, this time in private. No press, no smiles. I believe there has been a breach, I said, handing him the same forged document. His face darkened as he scanned it. Who gave you this? My husband found it, or rather, planted it. Mitchell stared at the paper, then looked up slowly. I know who added this clause. My pulse quickened. Who? He hesitated. It was Stuart Beck, our legal counsel. He said you authorized the changes through a remote filing system. My hands clenched. Stuart Beck, the same man who had introduced Nathan to the board just 2 months ago. Of course. Mitchell sighed. I trusted him. I did not realize he was this deep. He helped my husband steal control of my investment, I said coldly. No, Mitchell said. He tried, but it was never finalized. I stared. What? Mitchell tapped a folder beside him. Stuart submitted the amendment, but before it could be processed, it flagged our system for a missing biometric verification. Your thumbprint was never uploaded. Without that, the clause is invalid. I exhaled sharply, tension breaking like glass. Mitchell stood up. I will handle Stuart, but Evelyn, this goes deeper than we thought. He did not just target you. He has been stealing from multiple shareholders. You just happened to catch him. I nodded. Then let me help you take him down. The next few days moved with silent precision. While Nathan left for work each morning, confident he still held leverage, I spent hours collecting everything. Emails, signatures, account access logs, digital fingerprints. With Marcus's help and Mitchell's quiet cooperation, I was building an airtight case. But this was not just about exposing fraud anymore. It was personal. Mitchell scheduled an emergency board meeting under the pretense of addressing company security concerns. Stuart Beck would be there, as would Nathan, who by now was being considered for a director-level appointment. thanks to the illusion he had built around his supposed access to new capital. I watched Nathan that morning as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. He kissed me lightly on the forehead before leaving, as if nothing had shifted. I kept my face blank, nodding with the same quiet obedience he always mistook for weakness. Inside, I was ready to end everything. By noon, I entered the boardroom through the side entrance Mitchell had arranged. The board members were already seated. Stuart stood near the whiteboard, smiling as if he owned the room. Nathan sat beside him, confident, polished, completely unaware that the stage he thought was built for his success was really a scaffold. Mitchell stood to address the board. "Before we begin with the agenda," he said calmly, "we have a few disclosures that must be made." Stuart looked up, slightly puzzled, but still smiling. That smile vanished when Mitchell turned toward me and said, "Evelyn, if you would please." I stepped forward, placing a thick folder of documents on the table. "For the past year," I began, "an unauthorized attempt was made to alter my investment agreement with this company. The documents were forged. My signature was faked. So was my father's." Several gasps rippled across the room. "More concerning," I continued, "this was done with the assistance of your legal counsel, Stuart Beck. The goal? To transfer control of my shares under the name of a third party, my husband, Nathan Carter." Nathan's chair scraped back violently. "This is insane," he blurted out. "You are trying to ruin me." I ignored him and turned to Stuart. "The amendment was never finalized. The system required biometric confirmation. It never received it." Stuart tried to speak, but Mitchell cut him off. "We already traced the digital activity. You used your internal clearance to push the change through. You are done here, Stuart." Security had already been summoned. Stuart's protests grew louder as two men escorted him from the room. Nathan stood frozen, pale, unsure whether to fight or flee, but he was not ready for what came next. Mitchell turned to him slowly. "Mr. Carter, your name appears on the false beneficiary application. Care to explain how that happened?" Nathan looked at me, eyes burning. "You set me up." "No," I replied calmly. "You set yourself up. I just finally stepped out of the shadows." The room fell into an awkward silence. Mitchell broke it. "There will be a formal investigation, but as of now, your promotion is revoked. You may want to speak to your attorney." The board meeting ended, but not for me. As I gathered my things, a woman approached me. Late 40s, blonde, unfamiliar face. She wore an elegant navy suit and a subtle expression of knowing. "Evelyn," she said softly, "can we talk?" I nodded, uncertain. We stepped out into the hallway. She introduced herself as Claire Rowan, a former senior investor who had left Xenix 2 years prior. Her voice was low, serious. "You are not the only woman Nathan tried to manipulate," she said. I blinked. "Excuse me," she sighed. "Back when your husband was just starting out here, he tried to get close to me, told me I needed him if I wanted influence. I dismissed him quickly, but he did not stop. He has always looked for women with power he could drain quietly." My chest tightened. "Why are you telling me this now?" She pulled out a flash drive. "Because I started documenting everything. I was planning to go public, but I walked away instead. You stayed. You fought. And now, you might be the only person who can bury him." I took the drive, unsure whether I wanted to know more, but I knew I had to. That evening, alone in my home office, I plugged in the flash drive. Hundreds of files appeared. Emails, voice recordings, internal communications. Nathan had been building a personal archive of influence, whispering into promotions, sabotaging colleagues, coercing younger female interns into silence. And worse, one email stood out. It was dated 2 months before our wedding. A single thread between Nathan and Stuart. "We move after the ceremony. She will never see it coming." My hands trembled. He had never loved me. I was always the plan, a pawn. That night, I did not cry. I did not scream. I simply began writing. A press release, a legal statement. a resignation for him to sign, and a carefully timed exposé that would shatter his carefully built image. If he wanted war, I would end it with elegance and precision. The next morning, I handed Nathan a sealed envelope before he had even finished his coffee. He opened it without speaking, still reeling from the boardroom disaster the day before. His eyes scanned the page. His mouth fell slightly open. "What is this?" he asked. "A legal agreement," I said coolly. "It includes your resignation from Xenix, a non-disclosure clause, and a statement absolving you of all criminal intent. In exchange, you walk away with your dignity intact and no formal charges." He looked up, almost offended. "You think I'm going to just walk away?" I stepped closer, dropping the flash drive Claire gave me onto the table between us. "Then by all means stay, and I will release everything." He stared at the drive like it might explode. "If I go down," he said finally, "I will take you with me." I leaned in. "You tried that already, and you failed." Nathan signed the papers. He packed a bag by sunset and left without another word. The door closed behind him like the final note of a funeral hymn. But even as he disappeared, I knew something still did not sit right. There were threads left hanging, questions unanswered. One in particular clawed at me. How had he discovered my connection to Xenix in the first place? I had taken every measure to stay anonymous. Even Claire's evidence only went back a few years. Yet Nathan had somehow known to target my finances months ago. So I did what I always did when something did not make sense. I investigated. I called Marcus. "Check into our tax records. Look for any third-party access, any shared correspondence with unfamiliar names." An hour later, he called me back. "You are not going to like this." He sent me a list of IP addresses. One stood out. Logged into my tax file under my name. 2 years ago. The IP was linked to a private account registered in my mother's maiden name. But my mother had been dead for 10 years. I traced the account. It was listed under an email that had only one message in its sent folder. To Nathan. My breath caught. I knew who owned it. My sister, Natalie. We had not spoken since our mother's funeral. I had supported her through her addiction, her divorces, her debt, until I finally cut her off completely. She said I had abandoned her. I said I had saved myself. I had assumed our silence was mutual. Now, I realized it was not. I called her. She answered on the second ring. "Wow," she said. "I was wondering how long it would take you." I swallowed hard. "You gave him access to my records?" She exhaled into the phone. "He paid me, and he said you would never even know. I thought it would be harmless." "You thought helping him forge documents and steal from me would be harmless?" There was a pause. "I needed the money," she said, quieter now. "And you had everything. I could barely breathe. I would have helped you." "No, you would have pitied me," she snapped. "There is a difference." I hung up before I said something I would regret. But the damage was done. The betrayal was not just from Nathan. It came from the last family I thought I still had. I sat in my office, shaking, not with fear, not with grief, but with fury. This time, I did not need a boardroom or a microphone. I needed the truth. 2 weeks later, Xenix held its annual stakeholder conference. It was live-streamed, covered by every major financial outlet. Mitchell had asked me to deliver a keynote. He thought I would talk about growth, about reinvention. But I chose something else. When I stepped on stage, I stood for a moment in silence, watching the audience quiet itself. Then I began. 2 years ago, I made an anonymous investment to save this company from collapse. I believed that hiding my name would protect my life, my family, and my future. I paused, letting my words settle. But silence has a cost, because in that silence, others decided they could rewrite my story. They tried to take what I built. They tried to control what I owned, and when I refused to be small, they punished me. I looked into the camera. I am here to say this. I am done hiding. My name is Evelyn Grant Carter. I built something from nothing. I lost it, rebuilt it, and then watched as the people closest to me tried to tear it apart again. But they failed, because I am still here. And now, I am just getting started. The applause lasted for minutes. The next day, I filed criminal charges against both Stuart and Nathan. The forged documents were enough, the digital trails undeniable. Claire agreed to testify. Other women came forward too. They had stories, proof, pain. My sister never reached out again. I did not block her. I just stopped waiting for anything. 3 months later, Xenix offered me the role of vice chairwoman. I accepted. And when I walked into the boardroom that first Monday morning, I wore the same simple navy blue dress I had worn the night of the gala, the night Nathan told me not to embarrass him. But this time, no one gave me instructions. No one told me to stay quiet, and I did not smile for anyone's comfort but my own. Evelyn was never weak. She was waiting for the right moment to show the world who she really was. And when that moment came, she took it without asking for permission. Do not let anyone write your story for you. Speak up, stand tall, and when they tell you to sit down and stay small, rise anyway. If you want more stories like this, filled with betrayal, courage, justice, and unstoppable women, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that might just change the way you see the world. Your support means everything.